Labour MP wants to fucking GB News, right? I like you, but stop throwing pop-ups at me. Labour MP wants to change law to let dead people switch their gender. How would someone that's dead be able to do that? I have no idea. Let's have a look at the article. There have been accusations of attempting to introduce gender self-identification through the back door. A Labour MP has sparked outrage after calling for a change in the law to allow people's gender to be changed on official records after their death. Now, I think it should be the person who died that should have the ability to do that, but let's just get into the article. Warrington North MP Charlotte Nichols called for the change in a written parliamentary question in the Cabinet Office last month. She asked if the Gender Recognition Act of 2004 could be amended to allow for transgender people who are deceased to be legally remembered by the gender they lived by. It would mean that those who had not undergone surgical treatment could be identified as a different gender. Now, I don't know if you know much about archaeology, but nah, never mind. Let's try and get this monetised. The genesis of the petition was the murder of my constituent, Brianna Gay, whose life was brutally cut short after she was old enough to have formal legal recognition of who she was and how she will be remembered by her family, friends, and our community, Nichols told The Telegraph. At that time, the government said they did not believe any reforms were necessary, but it is something I continue to have raised with me by my constituents and will continue to raise with the government accordingly so that this can be an option available to bereaved families should they so wish. I think it's dumb. Like, okay, right, I'm not going to get into another fucking gender argument. I'm done with that. I'm done arguing and changing people's minds. My job now is to make a strong border between me and the crazy. That's my job now. Right, but her family and friends and everybody know that, and like she has, unfortunately, like in the worst way imaginable, been immortalised in history, and so people are kind of always going to know that. But I mean, I see trolling. I see, because like if one of my friends die, I could be a complete dick and go, he identified as a woman. Yeah, or Callum. Yeah, he was a woman. He had it. He had it because he knew how transphobic we all were, and he had it. But I mean, we always supported him, her, and if you could just change that, if you could just change that on the death certificate, it would really mean a lot to him, her. Really mean a lot to our female friend Callum, and then we get it on his gravestone. A fine hoe. I'm going to do that. If this goes through and one of my friends dies, I'm going to fucking do that. The Conservative MP added that organisations such as the NHS could assess whether a different gender was being used prior to death and decide for themselves what pronouns would be best to use. Oh God, there's more. He said where a person was using their new deaf gender, I mean, death probably is a gender at this point, with an organisation prior to their death, and that was on their personal records, then we anticipate that the organisation would engage with the family members using the new gender. Nichols' request has sparked outrage, with some campaigners accusing the Labour MP of attempting to find a way to introduce gender self-identification into law. I think it's really, really fucking cringe trying to get that kind of recognition from the government. Like, I need to be recognised. Like, okay, I understand maybe from your family, friends, and the people around you, but why the government? Why do you get... The government doesn't think I'm a woman. Who gives a shit? It's the government. The government thinks that I'm one of the most fucking dangerous men to have ever existed in Scottish history. I don't care. Government thinks I'm a full-blown Nazi. In fact, they legally declared me as one in my absolute fucking joke of a trial. I don't care. They can say whatever the fuck they want. I don't need recognition from them. They're not my dad. Don't get much recognition from him either. But like, that's besides the point. Right? Oh, my dad doesn't recognise my gender. My dad doesn't recognise me as a man. That didn't cause any problems for me. My dad doesn't recognise me as my gender either, even though I've smashed him a few times. No, I didn't. That was a joke. But, yeah, like, we all have people that don't recognise us for what we really are. A lot of the trans people think I'm the second coming of Hitler. That's not what I really am. But there's not much I can do about it, and I just try to not let it bother me. Instead, I'm just going to build that fucking border. That's fine. Say whatever the hell you want and pass what awful legislation you want. Go and have as wide a range of restaurants as your heart desires, my dear boy slash femme slash bi or whatever the fuck you are. Right? As long as it doesn't cross my border, then that's fine. You have at it. You have fun. No handouts, no foreign support for when it all comes crashing down. Lucy Marsh, a spokesperson for the Family Education Trust, said it's extremely concerning that Labour appears to be pushing towards introducing gender self-ID through the back door. If coroners are allowed to lie on public record about the sex of deceased children, this will surely be a slippery slope towards self-ID becoming normalised in the NHS. If this is legally allowed, what's to stop deaths being recorded as non-binary or babies being registered as the opposite sex? The government needs to crack down on this and make sure the NHS is based on reality rather than fantasy. Now, I've got a feeling that this might be used to skew statistics, where it's like, oh, so many trans people, not enough trans people are dying to get our point across. We only had about 3 last year. But if we could find a bunch of people we know next of kin, that we could just, do a little... get the Tipex out and just change a few things here and there. Oh, hundreds of trans people died last year. I don't think they would go that far. I don't think they would go that far. The government needs to crack down on this and make sure the NHS is based on reality rather than fantasy. North Somerset MP Sir Liam Fox added, it is patently absurd, factually inaccurate, and a statistical distortion. We should not be encouraging the idea that people can simply choose to change their biological status, nor should we bend the truth to accommodate an even more extreme and dangerous ideology, which, let's face it, that is what it's becoming. Lot of shooters now, man. I mean, it's refreshing from them killing themselves. Like, a nice change. Progress. That was dark even for me. I do apologise. But still, I don't, see if the person wants to do it themselves, whatever, right? I don't really give a shit about that. This whole, oh, government senpai, please recognise me, is cringe, right? Is cringe. Like, stop giving a shit about what the government thinks of you. Right, we don't give a fuck. The government thinks that we're all fucking terrible and awful and have to atone for the sins, sins of the forefather who may or may not have owned slaves or fucking whatever. Right, we don't care. We don't give a shit what the government thinks of us. And you shouldn't either. Because if you can't love yourself, can't be... I'm sorry. That was gay, even for me.